I also met a number of other leading professors working at different think tanks, and really privileged to meet you there, Professor Lee. And after the discussion, I think I suggested that we could invite you to become an adjunct professor, and you readily agreed to do so. So thanks so much for that. And we succeeded in getting you appointed early in this year, and we've also had the benefit of your masterclass in our series that we ran for the African Continental Free Trade Area, and your lecture on the lessons from South Korea for Africa's industrial transformation was a really important contribution to the development of that master series for the African Continental Free Trade Area. I should also say that you are this lecture is part of a guest lecture series that we launched early this year. And I'm very pleased to say that the first lecture was delivered by none other than Adjunct Chang. So this is the last lecture in that series for this year. And so we're opening and closing with two luminaries really from South Korea, and both friends. And really, so I am really pleased that you have also, like Adjunct, simply indicated your commitment to contribute to the development of the African continent by sharing, the amazing experience of South Korea that we all look to now for inspiration for many of the journeys that we are traveling on this African continent. So we are privileged indeed to have you here because you have spent almost a lifetime now working on industrial policy and working particularly on the issues related to innovation and science and technology and the role that it plays in industrialization. And your work on the experiences of South Korea and what we can learn from the catching up, because like many countries on the continent, and actually most developing countries, you in South Korea were also a late comer, catching up, and yet you were able to lead by far the latecomers. South Africa is one of those two, a latecomer that shouldn't really be in this position because we were already ahead of you when you started on your journey, yet you have overtaken us. And so I think today we would want to learn from you about why that was the case, why did you succeed and why did we fail, and what were some of the lessons that we can learn from your experience. So Professor Keun Lee has a incredible research record. He has published a number of books which are path-breaking. They have been recognized and received a number of awards for his books, and notably the book that you've written on the art of catch-up. Should be on everyone's bookshelf, and certainly our students, and your work on learning from Schumpeter and his analysis of catch-up, I think is very useful and valuable for us. You also are not just a professor, you are very active in providing policy advice, and you have been part of the Economic Advisory Council, the vice chair of that, to the president of Korea for a number of years. And you also playing a big role in publishing and editor of the research policy. I think that your new books, which look at the role of China and it's how it succeeded as well in a very short time. It will make fascinating reading, I think, for all of us. And on this continent, we're very interested in leapfrogging. Leapfrogging, how can we leapfrog? Because we can't travel the long years path. We've got to move on. So I'm really excited to listen to you and your lecture, and I would love to hand over to you now to present your lecture. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Nice introduction by Jack. It's great to be here at this school named after important leader of this country or global leaders. And I've been to South Africa. This is first time, but this second time to this town, but first time this school. So I'm very glad to have this opportunity. And also, as I mentioned by him, I become a professor here, so adjunct professor. So I have to be here. Okay. So given time limit, let me go into my seminar. The focus is about what are the new diverse mode of growth and upgrading in system and GBC. And also, again, the catch-up perspective. I try to say, although I'm not expert on this country, try some implication for South Africa. Next. Is it good? Okay, yeah. So first, let me introduce starting from the middle-income trap concept. Yes. So one way to look at this concept is how far you are catching up compared to level of US in terms of per capita GDP in PPP. This shows Korean catching up. Korea used to be less than 20% to US in early 80s. In 1960, it was less than 10%, but now reached 70% of US, which is same as Japan. Also similar to level of UK, Italy, France. So in this per capita wise. But such fast catch-up is not happening much around the world. If you see these other Asian countries, Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines, their slope is not that steep. So very slow catch-up, or we can call it middle-income trap. If you don't grow beyond the 40%, 40% is the upper middle, the high-income level, starting level. To remain this 40% for many decades is called middle-income trap, according to one World Bank definitions. Malaysia is doing better. So I'll have some discussion on Malaysia, how they are catching up compared to much better than other Asian countries. Then this is the actual World Bank document, which first introduced this middle-income trap in terms of relative gap with the US. So the 1960, your gap with the US in terms of low. So this point is the 20%, 40%. That's the actual upper middle-income ranges. This is your level recently, 2010, 28. So if you're in this box, that means you remain this 20 to 40% box for the last 5 decades. Okay, and very few cross the bar join high income status. These are the peripheral European economy: Greece, Portugal, Spain, Ireland, Israel, Japan, and 4 Asian tigers. Then some oil exporters, some exceptional countries. So that means only certain countries around the world cross this bar join a high income status. So my initial question, how is this possible? And what's the reason for this failing to catching up? Okay. So this is same graph. Can you move this to this side? Or the bottom might be okay. So this same graph into different countries. So here is China. China used to be only less than 10% to 3% US, but now reached 30%. Which is same as Brazil or just surpassed Brazil. But look at Mexico. Used to be as high as 50%, but keep declining. Maybe due to or despite free trade with the USA. Free trade didn't save Mexico going beyond trade, rather falling behind. And South Africa is also not doing well, it's kind of falling behind. It used to be very high, but now, at least in this criteria, somewhat falling behind. Brazil also similar. So the very important issues, how to maintain catching up. To catch up, you got to grow faster than US. That's not easy. Okay, so Indonesia is very steadily catching up, although much slow speed. So this catching is very important challenge. It's not easy. Okay. So why this middle-income country happening? One typical story is that many of middle-income countries get caught between low-wage manufacturers and high-wage innovators. So at the middle income, your wage keep increasing. So you're losing competitiveness in manufacturing FDI to other low-wage countries. But your innovation is not high enough to compete against high-wage innovators. So I think innovation is one of the key variables in MIT issues. Okay, so as a Schumpeterian, that's why we get innovation system, which is key concept in Schumpeterian economics. We look at innovation system at several dimensions: national level, sectoral level, or subnational, or city level, also even corporate levels. So analysis is defined as element and relationship which interact in production, diffusion, and use of knowledges. These are the terms created by Nelson and Lombard. They are the guru in Schumpeterian economics. So if you have a good analysis, you'll be strong in innovation, thereby economic growth. If it is not functioning where we call it the system value, which is different from neoclassical market values. Okay? So system happening, there is a less strong synergy or interaction among key innovation actors, okay? Or some structural barriers. Okay? So my previous book, I analyzed this in a system at 3 levels, from country, sector. That's why I got this Schumpeter Prize. This one is more technical. This is non-technical, more easygoing story. So I can share a file of this book if you want to send an email. Okay? So in this book, I emphasize the concept of leapfrogging. Okay, as mentioned. So Adjunct said the incumbent country are taking away the ladder, but leapfrogging means that we don't need a ladder. We don't follow the same path. We can go different paths. Okay, that's my idea of leapfrogging. Okay, although Adjunct not endorse. So let me show. So this part I show some how to measure NIS. Key issue how to measure them. Okay, that's a key issue. Then later I talk about the resource-based development of Malaysia and Chile. Okay, so in my cases, I use in this part I draw up my several papers how to measuring NIS and classifying NIS across the world development papers. And these papers on comparing NIS with the economic complexity index. Okay. So there are many ways of measuring NIS. I use the pattern citation data because citation is very homogeneous, available for all countries and many decades. So I can use the US pattern or European, but in this case I use US pattern data to have a measurement of key aspects of NIS. I focus on 5 variables. Which first is localization. That means how much you are creating knowledge locally, more local interaction compared to learn from foreign knowledge sources. Second is concentration. Is it done by few number of big companies or by large number of diverse kind of entities? Another variable is cycle time. I explain this concept soon. The originality. If you invest based on very diverse field of knowledges, we put in more original ideas. It's measurable technical convergence or combination. Last, we have a diversification. If you have an innovation pattern in diverse field, we call it you're more diversified in technology, which can basis for diversification in trade or industries. Okay, so Schumpeter looking at knowledge basis of industrial or trade structures. So this is one key variable, cycle time. What is cycle time? Cycle time means that how quickly technology knowledge are changing in the sectors. So how to measure it? It's like 10 minutes in terms of citation. You cite average 10-year-old paper. It's like writing your paper. When you cite other paper, if you cite the old article, it's a long cycle field. If you cite a recent field, that's a short cycle field. I thought this very interesting for the case of East Asian success because the average cycle time of Korea time getting shorter and shorter. That means we specialize in short cycle technology-based sectors such as IT, manufacturing. Why it is good? Why it is niche? Because short cycle means that incumbent knowledge are quickly destroyed, become useless, outdated. So if you file patent in IT, after 2 or 3 years, nobody look at the patent. It's already outdated quickly. That means what? That means less entry barrier for latecomers to enter late. Another meaning of that, high frequent innovation means more growth prospect. Very interesting criteria. Less entry barriers, but high growth prospect. That's IT, short cycle technology. So Korea can specialize in short cycle. That's one of the key elements to the success. Okay. So this is actually key value in my previous book. That's why I got the prize with these ideas. Okay. So this shows which are the top 10 patent classes where a large number of patents filed by European G5, Korea Thailand. So Europe has more patents in drugs, material measurement. That's all long cycle patents. Long cycle is good. High entry barriers, so high profitability. You can be incumbent for many, many decades, even centuries. Okay. But Korea has patents in semiconductor, television, connectors, no overlaps at all. So we are entering quite different field from European incumbent, seeking niches. So we succeed not following Europe, we succeed going opposite direction to Europe. Yeah. So Europe is long cycle, short cycle. But now Korea is trying to enter long cycle because we have already built up some capabilities in entering high entry barrier sectors. Okay. So this is an example of cycle time normalized around 1. We divide by world average. So this is Korea, Taiwan getting shorter, but now we are trying to become very longer. China is following the same path with about 10, 15 years legs. Germany is long cycle. Germany is strong in long cycle such as materials and machine tools and so on. Brazil is too long. So I thought this is not good. Because Brazil, especially like drug and so on, they're making some patent articles, but not much commercial success. Because high entry barriers, a long time, it takes a long time to develop your medicine commercially. You have to go several years of clinical trials. You lose all the money between the process. Okay. So that's why Brazil has having trouble with generating commercial innovation. But now East Asia trying to enter long cycle, although slow. Okay. Samsung is now entering bio, which is long cycle. Okay, because short cycle easy to be catch up or easy to be caught up by another latecomer like China. Mobile phone market, short cycle. So Korea used to be a 20% market share in China's mobile phone market. Now it's Samsung is 0.5%. China already caught up in short cycle. So we have to move long cycle, which is bio for Samsung choice. Samsung already become number 3 in competitive contract bio manufacturing, ODM. So Samsung bidding heavily on bio, which is long cycle sectors. Okay. So Samsung does not MBF. Samsung already like BASF in Germany. BASF in Germany has been number 1 in the field more than 100 years. No way to catch up once we are strong in. Look at Switzerland. They are strong in pharmaceutical more than 100 years. No way to catch up. Yeah. But in mobile phone, look at what happened to Motorola, which invented mobile phone. It's collapsed. No way on mobile phone. About Nokia, collapse. It's so that very frequent change of leaders. That's give opportunity for entering language. Okay, that's the key idea of my whole catch-up economics. Okay, and if you go to short cycle, it helps diversification because you keep entering new technology, which is happening frequently in short cycle. So this is diversification by European incumbent. This is Korea, Thailand. Quickly same level. This is the Brazil, Argentina, and so on. Localization. Localization means how much you are creating locally. Okay. The European incumbent, Korea can only surpass the European level. Because if you short cycle, that means you don't lay on incumbent knowledge. You're building upon your knowledge. So you will eventually increase localization. So there is a connection between short cycle, localization, and diversification. But if you go into long cycle, no diversification, no localization.
How do you measure localization?
Localization is like a national level self-citation. Like an article you cite yourself, that's self-citation, but looking at national level.
Right.
So how much Korea citing patent owned by Korea? Early day, you have nothing to cite from the past. But over time, you are getting more and more accumulation, you will end up citing more and more. Very important measurable technical capability builder, upgrade. Very good. Firm level and national level, too. Samsung quote of Sony in terms of localization, self-citation. So I look at this very strong variable of measuring technological advancement, national level, sector level, and firm level. So I have this 5 variable measured by more than 45 economies around the world. It's localization, diversification, regionality, normalized cycle time, decentralization. I come up with a composite index for NIX5 index. I have a length for across countries. I do regression to prove this is most robust variable to economic growth, more robust than economic complexity. Then by Hausman and so on, okay? So this is Japan, US, and so on. There's Taiwan, South Korea, China. I have this South Africa, a little bit one step ahead of Brazil. Localization 7%, diversification 11 is okay. Originality is okay. Cycle time a bit long. So I think this is good, but it might be an indication of some non-strategic specialising. Decentralization is very good, but we have your rank is 23rd. It's okay, much more than India. Okay, but India is more promising because they are strong in both long cycle and short cycle. I'll talk to later about Indian cases. Russia is here. So this is my regression from previous papers. I controlling typical variable, complexity, significant. I did a different NIS. NIS3 means they're using 3 variable, 4 means 4 variable, NIS5 means all 5 variable. So both are significant. But if you add tons of trade variables here, each side lose significance. Each side based on trade data. So when I add tons of trade variables, each side lose significance, whereas NIS5 variables still remain robust. So I thought the NIS is more robust than complex variable. So then my next question was that I use this file to classify countries around several types. So I try to identify what are the catching up NIS type, what are the middle income trapped NIS type. So I try to match NIS type to economic growth performances. Okay, this is my recent paper on world development. Okay, so this is cross analysis. Cross analysis to group object in terms of several key variables. And I use 5 variables. So there is a balance multi-analysis is typical European countries. Balance, they are equally high in all 5 variables. And there is a small, there's a balance mix, several heterogeneous countries here. I find that the balance catching up is the imbalance catching is that's East Asian group, China, South Korea, Taiwan. That means imbalance is that they are very short in cycle, but equally high in diversification or localization. This group, imbalance trapped means that they are very high in long cycle, but very weak in localization diversification. But much of it is equally high in every variable. But the two imbalance, one is the short cycle catch up, this long cycle trapped. And balance mixed group is that balance between long and short. I'll show India as an example. Okay. So this is the summary of this 5 group. So here's imbalance catch-up group. China's very cycle time very short, 0.8 normalization. But trapped group very long cycle, 1.1, much longer than European maturity. Okay. And then their growth rate is less than this group growth rate. Okay. So I also run the economic growth regression with this NI's economies, controlling initial GDP, population, and so on, human capital, and so on, I proved that this balance catch-up group, imbalance catch-up, there are two groups. Both are plus and significant. Okay. Oops.
Just minimize.
Okay. Okay. Actually, to the regression, I tried same analysis for many different decades, the period. So early days, everybody in this group, big group. Then Korea created its own group from 1990, joined by Taiwan, instead by China. So this is social group. European incumbent, Japan, USA is outlier, big pattern. This is Northern Europe. This is middle income track. Okay, but India, Russia is here. This is one of the certain economies. So you cross the bar. So this is I call more balanced catch-up group. Not that long, not that short, but they're still doing catching up. Some are steady, not that fast, but they're steadily increasing cases. The typical example, India. I'll turn to the cases. So in this regression, I proved that two catching up group is plus, means growing faster than mature group as benchmark. The trapped group is minus, so they are not growing as fast as even the mature group. So it's trapped. So this regression proved that the idea of this catching up versus trapped ideas. Okay. So this is more graph, this diversification I mentioned first, quick increase in imbalance group, but balance catch up in the middle, imbalance trapped group not catching up at diversification. Localization too. Catching up, imbalance trapped group, no increase localization. And cycle time, I already showed before. This is short cycle, and this is balance. This is the mature group, and long cycle group is in the this imbalance trapped group, full long cycle. So let's look at these two catching group. Okay. Oops. So I said that there are two paths of catching up. One is the imbalance catch-up, Korea, Taiwan, China cases. Balance catch-up is like Ireland, Spain, Hong Kong, Singapore, and also recently India and Russia in this. Okay. So I also look at the service versus manufacturing productivity. So it's a share of service in GDP, share of service employment. I divided by this service manufacturing. So I found that this balance catch-up group very high in this number. So their service type very productive. But imbalance trapped group, service type very not that productive. So they are not good at manufacturing, not good at service either. Okay. But imbalance catch-up group service sector is as kind of average, because they are manufacturing based goods. So I found some correspondence between NI's type economic growth. I found the two catching up group, balance catching up group and imbalance catch-up group. Imbalance catch-up is short cycle, so they increase localization and diversification. Okay. So I can compare NI South Africa a little bit, couple of slides. This is localization. South Africa is very good in terms of localization, almost same China, much better than Brazil. This is South Africa, okay. Then diversification, China is extremely good, but South Africa is not good. Okay. And cycle time, Brazil, South Africa too long. India is in the middle, Russia, China is short. India is middle because India is strong in pharmaceutical, which is long cycle, also strong in IT services, which is also short cycle. India is very interesting cases, very balanced catch. So this India's pattern share in 6 categories, main category is pattern. India is very strong in long cycle, chemical drugs. But recently India increasing fast in IT services. That's why they are strong both in short cycle IT services, long cycle chemical. So they are become medium cycle, balanced cycle. This is South Korea, extremely biased toward short cycle, electrical and telecommunication, but very long cycle. We're trying to move this up. Listen to it, okay? So the subsequent implication is that right now it's a trapped analysis like Brazil and so on. Maybe you can move to more balanced catch-up mode, balance between short cycle and long cycle. We are big countries. You are good at localization, but very weak in diversification compared to China. So it's some balance between short and long cycle. Okay. And your originality with decentralization is okay. I think so. In terms of strategy, you have several choices, like making new balance between manufacturing and services, like Spain, and entering more hybrid-added resource or agricultural industry sectors, like Chile, strong in wine, fruit forest. Malaysia is strong in this palm oil, rubber, petrol. So I'll turn to this part as another alternative development strategy. Okay, so let me talk about this and finish in about 5 or 10 minutes. Okay, so I think this is another way of development, which is not short cycle manufacturing, but resource-based sectors, which is important in this era of de-globalization and GBC disruption, because you have to rely more on your own resources, locally available, rather than relying too much on value chain, global. Okay, which is risky, very in sense. Okay. So this is same item middle track as I mentioned before. Malaysia is reached 50% here, already above the 40% bar. Chile is same. Okay, so I'm asking how these two countries are getting out of track. And then say it's not because of manufacturing, but because of the resource sectors. Malaysia, palm oil, rubber, petroleum products. Chile, the fruit, wine, salmon, forestry. They are the leading export engine. Highly innovative industries, very knowledge intensive. But it's not succeeding not because of free market, but there was a lot of commitment for a long time in terms of innovation policies, building up value chain. Okay, so I have a paper on this important cases. This shows contribution to exports Malaysia. Malaysia is strong in IT manufacturing, but they are medium value. So example, middle country, not going up high-end segment. But export from the 3-4 resource sectors as big as, almost big as IT manufacturing export. Okay. In terms of trade surplus, this is by electrical sectors, but this is same as the surplus made by 3 or 4 resource sectors. So they are the leading dollar makers, as big as IT manufacturing. Okay. Larger surplus than E&E, especially since 2006. Okay. How this happened in Malaysia? One example is the palm oil sector. Okay. And Malaysia used to export this crude palm oil, unprocessed, but that portion become zero because now they switch to processed, more hybrid added export. Okay. So now second largest is contributor to trade. Okay. This is very important change. How this is possible? Not because of free trade, but because of innovation policy, industrial policies. Okay. So they tried to promote this processed palm export. The Hartun, Europe charged tariff against Malaysian export of processed, but no tariff at all on crude palm. That means what? You got to export, keep exporting crude palm oil only. No export processed palm oil. Okay. So Malaysia export duty against crude palm oil export to this corridor. Eventually, they took over British 3 plantation palm oil on the stock market. Hostile takeover. Very aggressive mode. This is the beginning of Malaysia's success in palm oil getting into a hybrid. Then add on in terms of R&D support and innovation effort to make it really local innovation-based hybrid. This is Malaysia's success story. And let's turn to Chile. I cannot go all sector, but let me focus on salmon. Okay. So, salmon is now strong Chilean export. But, salmon was not growing in the Chile Sea. It's not natural. They grew by scientific discovery and cultivation effort. It took several decades. First by American firm, they took over this American company. They learned from Norway's salmon farm. And there's a public agency called Chilean Foundation. They did a key role in diffusing this knowledge of how to cultivate salmon and diffuse that to Chilean local companies. So now the local company grow from only 4, now more than 200 nowadays. Okay, so it's initially foreign knowledge diffusion, but now based on local companies. Compared to mining, Chilean copper still foreign dominance. So we have to make linkages, not export, not much. So this case of Chile's forestry, salmon, wine, fruit, they export to berries, but berry also not growing in Chile before. It's all cultivated by scientific discovery and effort for building of technologies. Okay. So my point is that global South should export something more locally based, but make it hybrided with your own brand. So you should not export grape, but export wines, not milk, but cheese, not cocoa, but what is it? What we made out of this cocoa? Chocolate.
Yeah.
But these brands are very important, but all occupy European incumbent.
Yeah.
You should become like that, not in just manufacturing. So in this area of de-globalization, we got to rely on more on your resources, your value chain. So Chile and Malaysia showed that possibility of escaping threat, not based on orange manufacturing, but also on this locally available resources, agro industry. Okay, it's almost manufacturing. It's manufacturing actually, right? Yeah. So South Africa is a resource-rich, big country. You have a mineral and many agricultural products. You can make it something out of that, your advantages. Okay, but make them more knowledge innovation based and make them more export oriented. That's the challenge. Okay. So I think so overall, you can say several modes of catching up. For East Asian model, sector manufacturing. And sector IT, that's the Indian cases, although they are also strong in pharmaceutical. Then we have a hybrid export-oriented resource-based development, as example, Chile and Malaysia. And big countries like BRICS can do this, including South Africa. That's my rough observation. Maybe you have more better ideas. Maybe I'm somewhat novice point. Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Great. Well, that's a tour de force. Thank you to you, Professor Keun. It really is, I think, an amazing amount of data that you have managed to put together to reflect on the growth path and industrial development experiences of countries in the South, and what are some of the key factors that have contributed to their success. So you raised a number of issues which are pertinent to the continent, the African continent. Most of us are resource dependent economies and caught in a resource dependent path, and we've been trapped for many years. And many countries on the continent have the capacity to really move up the high value added path, but have failed to do so. But that opportunity is still there. So, you know, between 2 or 3 countries on the continent, we have, for example, in cocoa, Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria, and Ghana produce over 70% of the world's supply of cocoa. But you hardly have any local production of high value chocolate on the continent. So how do we do that? We have some of the best cotton, so we work in now on the cotton textiles apparel sector. The best cotton in the world is produced right here in Africa, high quality, organic, long grain, and which is hand picked cotton in West Africa and Uganda. But we just don't have the capacity to turn that into fiber and textiles. So in many areas, and you also pointed to some of the policy instruments that have been used. One of those is export taxes. They have worked in Malaysia, more recently in Indonesia, turning nickel into aluminium and steel, and how can we in Africa also use some of these instruments? The combination of course, industrial policy. But then you also spoke about innovation and the innovation infrastructure, ecosystem for innovation, the national innovation system, and all the different elements that are required to build, to create that ecosystem for entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship and innovation to take place. So, and to what extent that can be emulated, the experiences of South Korea, which have been successful in building such a system, and you've shown, you know, different types of technological catch up and cycles of new technologies, and how different countries have developed capabilities in some, and those that have managed to balance theirs, and those that haven't succeeded have ended up in a trap. So I'm opening the floor for questions, and you know, these are pertinent questions for both for South Africa but also for the continent as a whole. And if there are questions that you want to ask of Professor Keun's lecture, and for clarification or comment, please raise your hands. And if those of you who are online, if you also want to make a comment or speak, please feel free to just raise your hand so we can see you.
Yes, Michael.
Can you show the online participant?
Yeah, let's start with Michael Move. Hi, Michael, please go ahead. We're going to unmute you so you can speak.
Can you show
Prof.
And if you can, yeah, put your video on, that would be also great.
Sorry, unfortunately, my network is bad. Hi, Prof. How are you?
Hi, fine. That's fine. Go ahead, Michael.
Fine, thanks. Thank you for the very comprehensive presentation. I think my interests around what you presented is what role do you think culture plays in terms of innovation? Because some of the countries that you've mentioned that are very up the index, I'll pay attention to some things that I've learned in terms of having strong historical culture relating to innovation and collaboration. For example, Germany, Japan, and I think South Korea as well. But in terms of Africa, what role do you think our cultural differences or our culture influences the space of innovation, and how can culture be used to accelerate innovation?
Should I answer or should I collect?
Maybe we can collect it.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Michael. Anybody else wants to ask a question or make a comment? That's also fine. And Professor Lee can respond. So anyone else online who wants to say anything?
I have questions which revolve around how those transitions were incentivized. I noticed that when you were talking, you spoke about tax incentives that were used to encourage localization, if you like. And I'm just curious about the kinds of tools that you see working to encourage that that investment.
Right. What are the other tools? We have one more online. Mohammed Ali, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I would like to ask you a question about most of the countries you talked about in Eastern Asia and who have developed properly. Mostly they have been they had a long, rule of maybe single party, or maybe they have the a rule by one person for a long time. But on the other side, on Africa, we always, fight for democracy and, time people to stay for, time limit, and then you find them something are not going well. So is there a relationship that staying over for someone to stay for a long time in power helps them for these countries to develop? Where in Africa, you see them this regime change, and then when we stay for 2 times or sometimes 1 term, and then another one comes and take another direction. So is there a relationship that is maybe forcing those countries in the Asia that they have developed very well, compared to those in Africa? That is, I want some clarification on this area. Thank you very much.
Let me try to answer.
Please go ahead.
Okay. First, on the second question first. So you're asking what are the tools, maybe Polish intervention in making this transition happening. Okay. Actually, the Korea also rely on or specializing in labor intensive, such as clothing, textile. That's the, Samsung was now high tech, but Samsung original business was refined sugar and clothing. So Samsung keep entering new sectors. Samsung beginning is making refined sugar and clothing. Then Korea entered this IT manufacturing from like late 1970s or 80s. And there was some intervention in the sense that the first important initiative was that localizing telephone switches. Korea or many countries used to import telephone switches because of rising demand of telecommunication. But we pay very high costs to import foreign, almost monopolized telephone switches. So we decided, let's try to make it localized. We tried public-private joint R&D to localize telephone switch, analog switch. And we made a success, and we import substitute this foreign imported telephone switch. That's the beginning of entering IT manufacturing, also by public-private joint R&D, which is important in industrial policies. People used to have only tariff against import from Japan and so on, but we turned to more from industrial policy to innovation policy in terms of providing R&D incentives, in terms of tax reduction to R&D expenditure, and also joint public-private joint R&D. Okay, so those are the different policy tools according to different stage of development. Okay, more protectionist and more into innovation, knowledge creation aspect. So I can number list of this different industrial policy, innovation policy along the state development. And also, maybe in terms of cultural and political aspect, I have to mention in Asia, there was a kind of orientation toward the belief in state, because East Asian is culture more or less more discipline, emphasized by Confucianism. We tend to rely on the state as an important role. So this maybe we allowed more long-term like political rule by one single government and so on. And also it is bad for in terms of delaying democratic transition, but it was good in terms of increasing time horizon of private sector investment. Given long-term horizon stability, they are able to target long gestation period based sectors such as manufacturing. Otherwise, companies just target trade and the short-term banking and so on. Because of this long-term horizon, also we suppress interest rate to give loan. Otherwise, no investment. So first thing the military government did in 1960 was they nationalized all the bank, commercial bank. They suppress interest rate. So those are the rule by authoritarian rule. and increasing the time horizon of private sectors and helping the interest rate cost. Okay. Then we promoted the big business or conglomerate, family-owned one. We push them go for manufacturing rather than trade or banking and so on. So those are the maybe in terms of cultural aspect or more in terms of political economic consideration regarding these things. Okay. But now Korea all democratic transition successfully finished. One reason was that during authoritarianism or compressed development, we were able to create strong middle classes by mid-80s. They demanded political change, no more authoritarianism. But they already middle class, the process is very gradual or compromising. Not much involved real violence as before. This is more important than economic miracles, real political miracles. Another democratization happened around the legal kind of process, and it didn't disrupt economic businesses. So I think that's a contribution to authoritarianism in bringing out middle class who demanded more compromise, gradual process of the democratization.
Right. Yeah, that transition from authoritarianism to democracy is just amazing in world history to see how that took place, and how now Korea has a strong multi-party democratic system that's in place with strong trade unions as well, participating in the democratic process.
My question is about how do the, especially large corporations like the China or business groups, their development and history, how does that align with the varieties that you show, especially in terms of being able to switch to shorter cycles? I mean, so Samsung seems to have been successful in moving from, as you said, sugar and long cycles into short cycles, but that seems to have happened through the political change in South Korea and government's active involvement in everything, allocating finance and those kind of things. But whereas in South Africa, we've had very little control over large populations. We've allowed them to move their family listings abroad. They now live off rents from middle products and also monopolists. So the diversification you spoke about happens in very concentrated sectors in every sector of the economy. Our HHI is enormous. And they use the rents not to reinvest back in South Africa, but to actually diversify into trying to compete in global value chains, sometimes unsuccessfully. So we're not seeing that reinvestment back here. So it becomes really difficult unless the government decides it's going to be much more interventionist, possibly protectionist in the short term. It's very hard to imagine the switch.
Okay.
And then linked to that question, sorry, I'm going on a long time. I mean, it's also sounds that you're saying that possibly countries like South Africa, given the current problems with value chains, but also promoting localization, that maybe we should not look at export orientation in the short term, but we should be more locally based and maybe look at regional rather than global value chains. Is that correct?
Do you want to come?
Yeah, thanks so much. And I think this is really eye-opening analysis. And I think it brings a lot of nuance to some of these old debates about things like what is the role of resources and primary sectors in development. I mean, I think what comes across very strongly for me is that it reinforces the kind of argument that's made by people like Kramer and Sender and Okupe around the so-called industrialization of freshness.
What do they say?
What do they say? It's almost exactly the
really?
land story.
Oh, I see.
So, you know, the argument is that in areas like horticulture and agriculture, there's incredible scope for innovation, upgrading, and you have this combination of high labor intensity together with innovation, which often are seen as separate things, as well as export earnings. What I would add as a possible additional factor is that these are relatively low carbon sectors.
Low carbon,
which is not to say they don't have some environmental problems which need to be addressed, but you know, much lower carbon even than heavy industry or other parts of agriculture. And to me, I mean, that reinforces the argument for a very strong focus on those kind of sectors in the African context, the South African context. I mean, the other thing that's so interesting is that this thing of like endowments. Like on the one hand, you have Malaysia, you know, they had palm oil. They managed to really develop it into their high value added sector. Chile had copper, but didn't. You know, that's the endowment. You know, they didn't, as you say, they didn't start off having salmon and great wine, and you know, they built that competitive those competitive capabilities. So I think it's I mean, it's a fascinating set of insights with very important lessons for countries like South Africa. Thank you.
Great.
So if I
You want me to come back? Yeah, please.
Okay, yeah. So for the first question, he'll asking about the kind of origin of this the industrialization and role of the big business and how they lead by government, role of state. I think one of the important way Korean government try to control or the big business is that two things. One is, as mentioned, they nationalize bank and privatizing aid, but even after privatization, government was still influential about the decision making of the loaning. So several has followed the government direction, which is especially the several stage of 5-year economic planning, which is most indicative. But government select new promising sectors over the different period of time. And they give a lot of incentive subsidies, so several has to go into that direction to get some privilege, cheap loan and so on. But that's not all. Another thing is that we closely linked the privilege to their performance not in domestic market, but in foreign market, export outcome. So although Jabor are enjoying domestic market monopoly profit, but they have to go world market. Unless you perform world market export, no privilege. So there are cross link between export and privilege. That link very closely monitored. So this is plan for world market for local domestic privileges. And that's the important aspect of Korean growth rate. Okay? And also, I know in many African countries, the banks are the foreign owned, they are making oligopoly profits. So I think if there is oligopoly market in banking, it justifies intervention regulation because to make it more competitive is based on economic efficiency argument. So we could utilize a lot of the state-owned bank in development financing or SME special bank. So these two compete with the private banks who are based on conservative principle of lending. So there was not only suppressed interest rate, more control, but also there was a state bank in several subjects, development bank and SME bank, export orientation bank, three major banks, which is the key vehicle in pushing industrialization. Otherwise, all the commercial banker or the foreigners, they are very conservative, charging high interest rate, which is based on the oligopoly power. Yeah, I know. I know that Kenya tried to control interest rate. It's very difficult to bargain, but struggle with the foreign bank. Right? I think in Africa, the high interest rate is a big burden. How in that 20%, 25% interest, how can company making manufacturing? It's almost impossible. And then you may ask about the resource-based sectors. I see big promising, as you mentioned, but you have to be export-oriented, not domestic market-oriented. At least regional market. That's most. Because we have to earn dollars. With dollar, we can import the fixed capital. Without dollar, we can import. We're going to balance payment deficit. So export is most vital concern of every emerging countries. And Chile, Malaysia is a success because they are growing export-oriented sector, not just local market-oriented. Malaysia failed in the auto sectors. It's a proton national monopoly. It's a monopoly on domestic market, but not like export market. No discipline. So eventually sold to Chinese companies. I have a paper on auto sector comparing Malaysia and Thailand. Thailand is okay, but better than Malaysia, but they're still foreign owned, so its value addition is limited. Mixed success. So that's the second round.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. There are huge lessons there, I think, in the experience of South Korea, but also other East Asian countries for the African continent. But what you've highlighted are the huge opportunities, particularly in the resource sector, which is a massive endowment the continent has, just underutilized. And the opportunity to increase value added, export, bring in revenue. And how you do that? Well, the industrial policy environment, mix of issues, but I think you also highlighted the need for the carrot and stick. So incentives, but not just open-ended. They have to be disciplined. So how to manage, how to get that balance right between incentives and disciplining, but also the role of development banks that you need to provide at least affordable and finance. And you need to state banks, policy banks, development banks to really be able to provide that service to the industrial sector so that they could grow. So a lot of lessons there for the continent, a lot of experiences to draw on from the Asian experience, South Korea being one of the most important, but perhaps others too, where they failed. Why did Proton fail? So, those could be also very valuable lessons for Africa, but how not to do it, but also where they have succeeded and why did they succeed and what can we learn from that. So thank you so much, Professor Lee, for coming to the school where you are an adjunct professor. So you're welcome to be here and you're at home. It's also one of your homes, and you will also create, I think, the opportunity for the mutual exchange of knowledge between the students at our school and your school in Seoul. It's a great university, the Seoul National University, and there's the opportunities for student exchange and perhaps joint research, joint work. But certainly for us, for the school, to be active on the continent, we'd really value your sharing of experience and particularly to senior policymakers on the African continent as they embark upon the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area and move with greater determination to build regional value chains on the African continent. Your experiences will be very, very valuable. So thank you so much to everyone. Thanks to all those of you who joined online and to all of you colleagues who've come to the school for this lecture. Petunia will have the lecture recorded and make it available for the students as well. Thank you so much. So, thank you.
Thank you.